Please take your seats. The program will begin in 5 minutes. Please take your seats. The program is about to begin. Please welcome to the stage Bloomberg Media's Lauren Keel.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Bloomberg's Innovation in Play, Rethinking Possibilities in College Athletics, presented by Invesco QQQ. I'm Lauren Keel, Global Head of Community Innovation for Bloomberg Media. Thrilled to have you with us here today. And whether you're joining us here in person in the room with me in Atlanta, or you're joining us on our live stream, we're so happy you've chosen to join us. With the NCAA's March Madness tournament in full swing, there is no better time to discuss the evolving landscape of college athletics. It's not just about the game. It's a fast-growing industry where student athletes, athletic programs, and brands are rethinking their strategies to stay ahead in an increasingly competitive and lucrative space. So today we're bringing together top sports and business leaders to explore the policies, the strategies, and the investments that are shaping the future of college sports. You'll hear firsthand from industry insiders on how they're thinking about navigating governance shifts, how they're embracing innovation, and how they're adapting to a rapidly changing landscape. We'll also dive into what's next, where the biggest opportunities lie, technologies that are driving change, and the investments that are helping to shape the future of the game. So before we dive into all of that, a few quick announcements for you. First, I want to thank Invesco QQQ, who we will hear from shortly. We'd also love for you to join us in the conversation on social media. So please use the hashtag InnovationInPlay to follow along for key moments from the conversations today and to share your thoughts as well. You can connect with us and share your thoughts by tagging @Bloomberg Live. Now, please welcome to the stage Nate Dierking, Divisional Director of Invesco, for some opening remarks. Nate.
Thank you, Lauren. Appreciate it. As she said, my name is Nate Dierking. I'm a Divisional Director here at Invesco. On behalf of Invesco QQQ and our entire firm, welcome to our global headquarters here in Atlanta. And Invesco QQQ is an ETF that provides access to innovators for investors. And there's not a time in the world where we have a landscape that's evolving more, where innovators are needed more than collegiate sports today. The kind of innovators we provide access to are the ones that are going to shape our future and define what growth looks like. And as the official ETF of the NCAA and March Madness, we're proud to partner with Bloomberg to bring you this event, which talks about the next generation of collegiate sports with other leaders, with Jay Williams, with Candace Parker, with Blake Lawrence. I'm excited to be able to introduce that panel and to lead that discussion. Award-winning sports broadcaster and journalist from TNT, Amazon, and Bleacher Report, Taylor Rooks.
Hello, everyone. How we doing? All right, speaking of NCAA, how are those brackets looking? Busted? Anybody's Final Four still intact?
The reason why Taylor's talking like this is because she's top 5 at our company. So that's why
you didn't let me know
she's
that.
asking why.
No, but I will say this. Jay gave me some advice about St. John's. He said I should put them in my Final Four. You know what? I listened to you, Jay.
I was just trying to hijack other people's brackets.
Smart man. It worked. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. As you said, college athletics, of course, is at a defining moment right now, undergoing one of the most transformative shifts in its history. Revenue sharing, NIL deals, and new financial models are completely reshaping the relationship as we know it between athletes, schools, and brands, and completely changing the game. And next week, all eyes will be on the final hearing to approve the NCAA's landmark $2.8 billion Big B settlement, a decision that will not only compensate former and current college athletes for potential lost earnings, but it will also introduce new regulations, allowing schools
No former athletes?
No. There's a 6-year cutoff, we learned today. But we're going to get into all the money you all potentially lost when you were college stars. But with a very fitting twist, this monumental ruling is also set to happen on the exact same day as the men's national championship game, closing out the season with one of the biggest shifts that we may see in NCAA history. So
So today, as you can see, we're very fortunate to have 3 industry leaders that have seen this evolution from every single angle, whether it's the media, on the court, in business, or athlete marketing. So many questions for you all. So let's dive right in. So like I said, this is on the horizon, and I think with all things, you think this is black and white, but it really isn't. So I want to talk to all of you about the balance between the sort of financial strain on athletic programs and what is the balance between fair athlete compensation, but also sustaining college athletics as we know it.
Jumping right in.
Yeah, we get to it.
Okay. All right. Okay.
You're first.
It's been fascinating. We've been doing some innovation and play here where I've been getting a chance to go to different colleges and speak about this evolving landscape. So now watching a lot of universities hire general managers for the first time, right? You're seeing North Carolina just did that for the first time. Duke has done that with a woman named Rachel Baker that you'll see the piece on. And it's been interesting watching these kind of archaic programs and the way they operate. Right? You think about any athletic program, there's really no EBITDA because of Title IX and the way those assets get dispersed out to every single program, essentially. Like it's field hockey. But I think we're coming towards a consolidation of D1 sports overall. And I think now you're starting to see a lot of universities trying to learn how to operationalize. And as it relates to even like basketball, now you're seeing salary caps and percentage of caps and how do we get players out of the transfer portal. So I think it's chaotic. It's something that everybody wants players to get fair compensation, but there is no cap. There's a lot to get into. It's a little messy, but I also think when it's messy, there's a major opportunity. And I do believe that it's an opportunity we should continue to pursue because players deserve to get compensated as much as people want to talk about them actually maybe not deserving to get compensated.
Yeah.
I think it's surprising you mentioned the word operationalize. So all of us in this room use tools to go about our day. There's a whole new tool set, a technology that all these coaches have to learn in college athletics. They're used to coaching and teaching young men and women, and now they have to manage a cap. I got a phone call yesterday from a D1 men's basketball coach that said, I need a contract. My school doesn't have a contract. I need a kid's going to leave my school if I don't have a contract. I said, great. How much time do you need? He says, my meeting is in 1 hour. I need a contract. They've never seen what these contracts look like because they've never existed. So this is an entirely new world of coaches trying to learn, and it's now 300 plus D1 programs that, in terms of basketball, that need to have the solutions in the next 90 days to operationalize more like a pro team.
Yeah.
And so this is a transition to a whole new world for college athletics. The athletes are winning, though. The money is flowing to the athletes, but the infrastructure is being built, as the plane is being flown.
Candace, I see you shaking your head.
I just look at the landscape and it's like we are watching the game to go to the Sweet 16 and a question is posed to Derek Queen. And they ask why you're playing so well for your coach. And he says, because he writes the checks. Like, you know what I mean? And so we're entering into like this wild, wild west where I think now there's questions of whether the mid-majors and the lower D1s are able to compete. Well, they're not able to compete because guess what? If a star from McNeese scores this amount of points, I guarantee one of the ACC schools, because they didn't have such a successful
we did not.
year this year in the NCAA, is going to pluck that kid from there. So I think that there's a balance of players and opportunity there, but also how are we going to continue to grow the landscape for those other teams and those other players to continue to be able to be competitive. I think that's the main thing. And then from a player standpoint, the people around you. Like if you don't have good, solid people around you to be able to navigate this, then I don't know if you're going to be able to be successful. So at the early stages of this, I think it's a great opportunity for athletes to be able to have this, but also there's a balance of the protection and the layers that we're able to have to then take this ruling and figure out how to help the athlete and not have stories that we've had in professional sports for years of people blowing their money and not being able to pay their bills in 6 years. And so I think there's a balance, and everybody is just at this point trying to figure it out and trying to figure out what the landscape's going to look like in the near future.
I know, of course, everyone up here has always believed, okay, college athletes need to be compensated in some form or fashion. When you all were playing, did you ever envision it happening right now? Did you envision it looking like this? What did you anticipate?
I took the first one. Go ahead, Candace.
Everyone here, I'm assuming, has had a college experience. And remember college when you had an extra $20 in your pocket? Like, you were balling, right? You were ready to go to the bars. You were a top dog. There are athletes through Opendorse, our platform. We handle a lot of the payments. Hundreds of millions of dollars in college athletes' payments flow through us. There are athletes on this platform that are making $200,000 a month. College athletes making $200,000 a month. Remember what $20 felt like? I can't even imagine. So you talk about the support. Now, going back in time, you talked about the shirts, the jerseys they made of you back in college, right? And they couldn't give you one. You had to buy it yourself. I mean, I played football in Nebraska, and there was this one Subway that when they went in, this one lady was always going to try and give you the Subway sandwich for free, you know? And they told you never go to that Subway, right? Because we could get kicked off the team. We could lose scholarships if we took one Subway sandwich. That was only 15 years ago.
You were a cheater.
Yeah, you were cheating.
Cheater.
And so it never even really crossed your mind in college to take money from anyone, let alone a Subway sandwich. And to think that the mentality of a college athlete today has to navigate all these things. I like the scholarship. It was pretty good. But the money would have been pretty nice.
Yeah.
You look at the quarterback for Miami that's getting his Lamborghini stolen, which is crazy. It's wild to think about that. But honestly, all the stuff that you're navigating now in terms of figuring out marketing deals and doing all that stuff, I look at it as we played and it was like Coach Summit would talk about our scholarship and the boosters that were sponsoring our scholarship, and we owe it to them to show up to this dinner for that. Now people are like, I'm not showing up to that unless you pay me. So I think there's a balance of, you know, do I wish we had that when we played? 100%. But now it's entering into, you know, boosters being in the stands yelling at 18 to 22-year-olds because they didn't win, or they, you know. So I think it's a little bit more eyeballs, and kids are becoming professional. I mean, we had one of the #1 recruits, girls high school players, going to the Sooners, and they wrote a pretty heavy check for her to go to the Sooners. So I think it's benefiting athletes from a longevity standpoint, because now you're entering the pros and you're not building your brand. You're not building your business. You already have a price. So when the WNBA's explosion is directly a result of NIL and being able to capitalize and say, hey, listen, you know, they sold my Are You Serious shirt. I'm sure it sold, but I personally didn't know how much they sold that for. So now when you're Caitlin Clark and you're selling out arenas, now it's beneficial for you to be able to have this number and say, hey, WNBA, this is what it is. And then it raises the bar of that. So I think in women's athletics especially, NIL has raised the bar and had that trickle-down effect in terms of the WNBA. And then in college men's basketball, guys are staying longer. So the brand of basketball is better. We're at a historic level of field goal percentage. I remember watching college basketball a couple years ago, and I was like, oh, my gosh. Can somebody score?
Can they hit
it? Was that bad?
Yeah, it was bad. And now you're having the experience of not only like the Ionas that are experienced and keep their guys 4 years, but now you're having a starting five with Florida that has a fifth-year starter in Walter Clayton Jr. that's able to run your team. So it's a better brand of basketball. So just from the standpoint of like that, I think that there's growth. But boy, I wish we'd have had it back in school.
Well, this is internal, right?
No.
Yeah, there's a camera
It's
right
being
there.
streamed?
Yeah.
Camera right there.
Okay,
Yep.
just
Right there.
before
Come
I
on,
say
you're in the
something.
media. Your mic is hot,
I know.
Jay.
Right there.
I mean, can we be honest though? Like, we've always been paid. It's capitalism. Like, let's not lose sight of that. I joked around with the operative word cheater. Nobody was cheating. It was fair market value. But now what fair market value means is public. It's still not even publicly known. You probably have access to it. People don't know what A.J. DeBonsa got paid to go to BYU. You've never heard a top recruit say, I'm going to go play at BYU, right? But you know it's high in the seven
Sorry,
figures.
if anyone went to be
No offense to me. No, and great for BYU. I love him for BYU. I mean, actually, they're in a Sweet 16. They're playing, right? I hope they. Internal usage. But like, so I think that's where it gets interesting. I mean, my sophomore year, I definitely recognized when I would see the banner flips on games. I'm like, oh, Invesco QQQ. Oh, are these different brands here? Oh, Coach K, lifetime deal. What does that mean? And I was supposed to be content with the fact that I'm getting my $70,000 education. Now, great, I'm taking advantage of that. I'm meeting every Duke alumni, every Tennessee alumni, every Nebraska alumni, and tapping into that alumni base for future purposes. But at the same time, wait a second, I'm seeing the number 22 about 500 times when I walk into Cameron Indoor Stadium. Like, what am I getting on that? How come I'm not getting a version of ticket sales? So I think I recognized it. I knew we would get to this point, but inevitably, they're going to have to become employees. There's going to have, I mean, we have rev share, it's happening, but we still don't have player representation. Coaches have representation. Players don't have representation. We don't have a players union, right? So all of these are different things that are already in place in the NBA and NFL, but we don't have in place yet in college because we're trying to move the target towards that.
So I want to say right here, Blake knows everything data, and we have some numbers that we want to get into. Now, Candace and Jay and me, I have not heard these numbers, but Blake has crunched them and knows what Candace and Jay would have made in school.
Would have made so much.
If this was available to them. So I am so sorry if this hurts you, my dear friends.
Hurts my pockets. It hurts.
Blake, give it to me.
Starting in July, schools can spend up to $20.5 million on direct-to-athlete payments, $20.5 million. So you guys play a sport that is actually going to be an interesting spot. Basketball is going to have some salary caps are going to go down, okay, because football is going to take a big chunk of this. But the SEC, on average, and talking about Tennessee, they're going to spend $20.5 million on paying players.
So I shouldn't have went to Duke. You tell me I should have gone to SEC.
Yeah.
Copy, got that.
The SEC, on average, in the SEC, 6% of that pool, about $1.2 million, is going to women's basketball. Right now, if you're the top player on an SEC women's basketball team, you're making about 39, 40% of that amount. So you're looking at $468,000 is like where, Candace, you would come in as your annual pay to play college basketball. Now, I think if you're in the 99th percentile of SEC women's basketball, you're getting closer to $1 million a year to play college basketball. Would that be okay? Right with that?
I mean, yeah, that would be, it's crazy, the landscape now.
Jay, the ACC average, they're $18 million. So not every school in the ACC is going to be spending $20 million on paying players. Some of them just don't have in the budget right now.
I know we do.
Yeah, Duke's got, they've always had budget for basketball there, I'll tell you that. Right, Jay?
Always had a budget for basketball.
ACC men's basketball, on average, around $4.4 million is going to be the salary cap, about 24% of that number. The top ACC men's basketball guard gets about 40% of the team, so that would be $1.7 million a year. If you're in the 99th percentile as an ACC men's basketball guard right now, you're making $2.6 million a year right now.
Wow.
So I would have gotten close to what I would have made my rookie year in NBA.
Insane.
Yeah. To play basketball.
What he read was what I made my entire career in the WNBA salary.
Wow.
What he just read in one season. You think about it. Yeah, from rookie scale was like $55,000.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. What's your reaction, Jay?
It's, my stomach hurts. But it's fascinating. I mean, we were just talking about this in the back. You were saying kids are staying around longer. Well, I love when I see all these headlines, Taylor, where it's like, player X decides to come back to school and surpass the NBA draft. I'm like, he wouldn't have gotten drafted. And good for him, because there's a certain player at a certain college right now that is, I know for a fact the coach is like, I didn't want him to come back. Like, we had to, right? And he's making a couple $1 million.
Yep.
Right? And good for him to capitalize on it, but that's the opportunity where if you look at your 4-year horizon, you could say, if I'm making $2 million a year, okay, if I just stay the problem is it keeps going up, though, right? Because if I have a good year, like my sophomore year, we win a championship, I win National Player of the Year, and I'm like, you know what? I can get paid $2 million. I'm a free agent, though. I don't want to stay at Duke. Who from the SEC wants to pay me?
Right.
You know, I could make 4 or 5. Who knows?
This is what college sports is all about. I mean, everyone here is an alumni of somewhere. And if your team was bad last year, you would pay anything to make them good. If they're good last year, you'd pay anything to make them good again, right? And that is the challenge with college sports, is that it's very different than pro sports. I mean, all of us probably have a sports team that we like, a pro sports team, but you're not trying to throw down more money to get the best player of the Hawks, right? That's not how you're thinking.
Well, what does that do in the high school? That's my question. Because here's the thing. If I'm a coach, I mean, Rick Pitino said it. We're not recruiting high school players. We just had these dynamic 3 guards that are mature, experienced, all these things. So then I feel like it's taken a step back for high school as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
I've got one more data point. Sorry, I feel like I'm talking too much.
No,
but,
all you.
We're all Invesco dorks, right? So we like data. Men's basketball Sweet 16, the top 8 players by minutes, right? So the top 8 players, there's 16 teams, 8 players, that's 128. I went to Nebraska, but that's pretty quick math, right? Now, 128 players, 72 are transfers. So 56% of the Sweet 16 men's basketball players are transfers.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Purdue, all but as all Purdue players. That's basically the one that has them all. Of those 72 transfers, 35 are from mid-majors. So they went up. Why are they going up? You talking about this? The median pay for a mid-major basketball player is $10 grand. The median pay for a high major basketball player is $100 grand. It's a 10x increase in your take-home pay. If you perform at any level, you're getting closer to $300,000 to $400,000 a year to play in the 6th spot right now in the high majors. So moving up a level and the ability to transfer, you're going to see more and more transfers simply because it's an economic fact. It's capitalism at play in college sports. And again, the athletes are winning. It's going to impact the fandom.
Well, the transfer portal just opened March 24th.
Monday.
And everybody's like, oh, the transfer portal opened. I'm sitting there saying, it's been open. This didn't just start on March 24th. If I've been watching Candace play, if Candace was playing at Davidson and she was averaging 25 points and they got into, I've been on Candace the whole time, since the beginning of the season, talking with her agent saying, okay, she got this, like, what is it going to take? You know, 500,000, a million, 1.5? So, I mean, it's the kid, Jason Sandin, who plays at Arizona State. Day 2 after the portal opened, like, his deal was done, St. John's. He left Arizona State, St. John's. But that deal had been done for a very long time.
Right.
Blake, you were telling me some interesting trends with men and women's basketball, but also on the donor level and the private level. Can you tell me what you're seeing there?
Yeah, in the NIL space, there's commercial NIL, which is what you all think of. You see an ad, a billboard, you see Candace in a commercial, or you see on a Fruit Loops box, or we did a Kellogg's deal a couple years ago. Anyways, the stuff you see Candace in, that's real NIL, right? And then the stuff you see people, and then you see Jay. Jay is the bag man, all right? I want to personify this. So the guys that are getting paid by donors, that's called collective NIL. Okay, so in the collective NIL space, 90% of those dollars go to men. Okay, so only 10% of donor dollars go to women. If you look at the commercial side of it, it's almost 60% of all real dollars are going to women, because the marketability of women athletes in college is much higher. Like, you are more likely to be able to name a star women's basketball player in this year's March Madness tournament than men, right? If you just think about it, visualize the tournament, who do you know? You probably know Paige Beckers and Juju Watkins. Who else do you know? And that's the impact of women staying in the game longer. But I want to hear about why. But women are dominating the real NIL side of this as God intended it.
Yeah. Does anything stick out about those trends to you, Candace?
What's crazy to me is the fact that it's always proof of concept with women, never thought of as a growth opportunity where you see the potential of it. Like, it was just 2 years ago that we could use March Madness. Do you know what I mean? And so it's always, you have the proof in the pudding. And I think what social media has done for women's athletics is we've taken hold of that and we've said, okay, now these are the numbers, so you can't deny it. And with that being said, I think now we're going to see more of those dollars go towards women, because we are seeing the numbers behind the March Madness last year. There were more people that tuned into women March Madness than men. And so if that's the case, which I know the numbers came out for the first 2 rounds of the games, and we had some historic numbers. There was games on ABC now for the women's tournament where there weren't before. And so I think we're going to start seeing more of those dollars on the donor side as well that are able to be used towards women in general.
I also think there are so many stewards of the game before her, you being one of them. I mean, a lot of Maya Moore, so many incredible players that have played this game that have kicked my butt back in the day too, because I practiced with them. It's incredible. But like, if we're also being honest, like what kicked off with the NBA? It was the whole Larry Magic situation, right? And we had that last year a little bit with everything with Angel and Caitlin Clark. All right, now it's the momentum that has created, and then watching. I often sometimes joke with some people over at ESPN. I'm like, hey, I know we don't have, Juju Watkins on our network, but like, why aren't we showing her all the time? Right? We should be showing her all the time because we own the women's tournament. Right? So like you're planting a seed for what you want to market later. So it's like with Paige Beckers, you have that momentum that now I think is going into a ton of different women's sports, which it always should have been the case. It's unfortunate that it took something like that for it to get there. But it's controversy kind of, even if it's manufactured.
It was a story.
It was a story, right? But now you see a lot more stories, and I feel like we don't, as much on the men's side, it was just kind of like taken for granted that you will learn about who they are, but now you see a lot more intentionality, I think, with the women's storytelling where okay, I know who these people are, and I followed them throughout their course of time at school.
Yeah, and that's something that I think sometimes gets lost when we talk about, the moment of Angel and Caitlin. Obviously, both elite basketball players. Caitlin is just a phenom. But it gave both of them a story and created stakes that also added to almost why people wanted to pay attention. And I think that when we are talking about why we are getting eyes, it's really important to talk about it holistically and not just through the lens of one player. And it feels like that only happens with the women's game. And that is not how it should be. And staying there, go ahead, Candace.
No, I just, to piggyback on your point, when KD left the Thunder, all we were talking about was when Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant were going to play one another.
Yep.
That's all we were talking about. I turn on First Take, that's what you're talking about. I turn on Night Sports Center, that's what you're talking about. I turn, like, Chuck and Shaq, they're battling about that on air. Like, that's what they're talking about. So I think the storyline, but if you don't ever show something, people can't ever follow it, and so they don't ever pick a side. Because that's what sports are. Like, I didn't like Isaiah Thomas because he played for Detroit. I grew up a Chicago Bulls fan. That's the way it is. So I think the more that we're able to have the visibility to show these storylines, the more the individual brands will grow and the allegiance towards whatever individual will grow. And then that's where you get the, like, the Duke and the North Carolina rivalries and all that stuff. So that's all I wanted to add to that.
The visibility for all, of course. Now, both of you have built brands outside of basketball, in media and in business. When college athletes are thinking about NIL, why is it important they don't just see it through the lens of financial gain, but also about storytelling, about building your opportunities in business and outside of the game?
You want to go for it? Got it. So we had an interesting case study over at Improbable, and I just wanted to do it for proof of concept, where there was a star quarterback for Alabama that I just randomly met at a basketball game. His name was Jalen Monroe, and had a pretty good year. We'll see if he gets early second round in the draft. But we sat down with him. We did like a full diagnostic with him. I never had went through that my sophomore or my junior year of college about what does my name wasn't even Jay Williams. It was Jason Williams. Like, what does Jason Williams stand for? Like, what do you envision 5 years from now? What does Jason Williams mean in the marketplace? What are some of your hobbies? We ask natural questions. What toothpaste do you use? Like, what are little things just to learn? Like, and I think now from a media side and from a branding side, not only is it important to have financial literacy, because now you have to direct your team at an earlier stage, and it's going to happen to kids in high school, but also think about just not doing cash grabs, like actually things that are authentic to you, right? And being aware of what you use on a day-to-day basis, because I think everybody has a story, but how you tell that story and who you partner with to tell you that story, because Jalen Monroe isn't going to get a Netflix gig. He's not going to get a show on Amazon, but he can get a brand to underwrite some content. Right? So how you activate that brand instead of the brand activating you,
yeah,
I think that's the key. you have to activate the brand. Here's what I'm interested in. Do you want to be a part of that story so it remains authentic to who you are?
Yeah, having it be two-way.
Exactly.
Yeah, pouring into one another. Candace?
I felt as a female basketball player, when you got to the WNBA, you were playing catch-up from the biggest stage that you were going to play on. Tennessee was one of the biggest stages I played on. And when you get to the WNBA, you're almost trying to play catch-up for something that you don't have as high of a visibility at that time. So now being able to have the position to build your business from a standpoint of it's not a cash grab. Because when you get to the WNBA, you're playing catch-up, so you're trying to grab the cash. Now when you're in college, you're able to really look at the landscape, figure out what you're passionate about, and again, figure out ways to, because it is about networking. It is about knowing people. It is about the people surrounding the different communities that you decide to be a part of, and then figuring out ways to both benefit from that standpoint. I think now, because of NIL, you're able to decide to take less and not cash grab and really honestly play the long game. Because if you think about it, I played 16 years in the WNBA, but really, visibility-wise, it was 20 years because of the 4 years in school. And so if you're able to start from year one, building a vision towards, the next 20 years, then you're really able to take your time and figure out what you're passionate about, figure out, what you're aligned with, and not have to be like, dang, Candace has not ever drank that beer ever in life. Why is she on that commercial? It just doesn't look right. You're able to really play that long game. And so I think that for female athletes is what I'm so excited about, is because of that opportunity to be able to, to not have to cash grab.
Yeah. Jay, we've seen the many Candace commercials.
Look.
All right, I could talk numbers and evolution and innovation with you all day, but we are sadly running out of time. So we're going to end with who you picking to win. Men and women's championship. I'll start with you, Candace.
I mean, if you cut me, I bleed orange. So
of course.
See the orange shirt over there? It's Tennessee all day. It's all day. I know who he's picking.
Are we doing the same thing over here? Duke?
My mind is telling me Florida, but my reparations of NIL tell me Duke. Okay, let's be honest.
So good.
We're trying to get it to go back 25 years.
Let's go back 25 years, okay?
We're trying to.
Blake, you got to pick?
I think if Duke and Tennessee could tie, it would be
politician. He knows his audience.
Well played.
Really good for me. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you all so much for your time. Well, I have to say, sadly, we got knocked out by Kentucky. I went to Illinois every single year. I think it's going to be our year. It never is, but I believe every year. I feel good about Duke. I like Cooper Flag. I'm so sorry. But Candace is my favorite. Give it up for Candace Parker, No, thank you all so very much for being here. And once again, for all three lovely panelists. Amazing job, folks. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Taylor and our amazing panel. And thank you to our audience who's tuned in and joined us from around the world. We hope you enjoyed it as well. For those of you here with me in the room, we're going to take a short break before we kick off the next section of this event. We're going to be doing an exciting live podcast taping of The Deal with Alex Rodriguez and Jason Kelly. So we need to get everything set up in here. They're going to be talking with Vice President and Director of Athletics for the Georgia Institute of Technology, Jay Batt. So while we get everything set up, head out, grab some refreshments. We'll see you back here in 15 minutes ready to go. Thank you.
Let's take some questions.
You guys had a fantastic game tonight. What's going through your mind right now?
Yeah, I appreciate that, but look, all credit goes to the team. I could literally list 100 key players who made a difference, and each and every one, they're crucial to our success.
Your team style of play seems to be centered around innovation. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, honestly, innovation is at the heart of everything we do. It's straight out of the Invesco QQQ playbook.
Thank you.
Before investing, consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. Visit Invesco.com for a prospectus with this information. Read it carefully before investing.